So, um, picture this, right? You're sitting right in the middle of a modern open-plan office. The fluorescent lights are just humming away. You're staring at a spreadsheet, and you're trying to remember a completely ordinary word like, I don't know, stapler.
Oh, yeah, the classic brain fog.
Exactly. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, this wave of intense heat just radiates from your chest straight up to your face.
Yep.
You are suddenly sweating through your shirt.
It is awful.
Right. And out of the corner of your eye, you see your manager walking over to ask for a project update. Your heart starts pounding, and your brain just defaults to a single panic directive, which is just hide it.
Hide it, yeah. Because it's a profoundly isolating experience to sit in a room full of people and feel like your own biology is just betraying you.
Totally.
Yet, statistically speaking, that exact scenario is happening to millions of people every single day.
Because menopause is an entirely natural biological stage, right? It's experienced by roughly half the global workforce.
Yeah.
But despite that massive demographic reality, it remains this suffocating workplace taboo.
It really does.
People are suffering in silence. They're expending huge amounts of energy just trying to mask their symptoms, basically because they're terrified of being perceived as, less capable or unreliable.
And I mean, the cost of that silence is staggering. The research we're analyzing today indicates that 1 in 10 women actually leave their jobs entirely because of menopause symptoms.
1 in 10. Wow.
Yeah, 1 in 10. So if you consider the sheer drain of talent, of experience, institutional knowledge, and all because corporate structures struggle to accommodate basic human biology, I mean, it's a massive economic failure.
Yeah, it really is.
But the core of our discussion today is that it doesn't have to be this way.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today we are not just talking about, vague awareness or wearing a ribbon or something. We're answering one highly practical question for you, the listener, which is, how exactly do you ask for menopause-related workplace adjustments? And how do you actually secure them?
Right, the practical steps.
Exactly. And we've gathered a stack of heavy-hitting sources to figure this out for our deep dive today. We're looking at frameworks from the UK's National Health Service, guys from the CIPD, which is the professional body for HR and people development.
Really solid sources, yeah.
Yeah, plus recommendations from ACUS, the Workplace Arbitration Service, and various legal reviews and corporate toolkits.
So, well, I think the first hurdle we have to clear before we even get to the mechanics of asking is understanding the psychological barrier, right? Like, why are people so reluctant to initiate this conversation?
Why the silence?
Exactly. The data from the Equality and Human Rights Commission reveals that only 12% of women seek any workplace adjustments for menopause.
Wait, only 12%?
Just 12. That means nearly 90% do not ask for help. And over a quarter of those who stayed silent explicitly cited fear of the reaction they would get from management.
Oh, wow. I mean, I was reading through the CIPD guides, and there seems to be this pervasive myth holding people back.
Oh, absolutely.
It's this assumption that you have to somehow, earn the right to ask for support. This idea that unless you are visibly falling apart, or unless you drag yourself to a doctor, secure a formal medical diagnosis, and drop a signed doctor's note on the HR desk, you just aren't permitted to ask for accommodations.
Yeah, and that is perhaps the most damaging misconception in the workplace right now.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Every single framework we reviewed, from the NHS Trust to ACUS, they explicitly dismantle that myth. You do not need a formal diagnosis to ask for support.
You don't.
You do not need a doctor's note, and you certainly do not need to wait until you hit total burnout to ask for help.
I want to push back on that slightly, though, because, a supportive HR brochure telling you that you don't need a diagnosis is great, right? But brochures aren't legally binding.
Fair point.
So what actual leverage does an employee have? If a manager demands a doctor's note, what is the legal foundation in the UK that says the employer actually has to listen to the employee's self-reported symptoms?
Well, it rests primarily on 2 major pieces of legislation. The first is the Equality Act 2010. Now, to be precise, menopause itself is not listed as a standalone protected characteristic under the Act.
Oh, so it's not explicitly named.
Right, there is no specific clause just for menopause. However, if the symptoms, and we're talking about debilitating fatigue, severe brain fog, or heavy, unpredictable bleeding, If those are severe and long-lasting enough that they substantially affect your ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities, those symptoms can meet the legal definition of a disability.
Oh, I see. So the law cares about the impact of the condition, not necessarily the specific name of the condition.
Exactly.
If it acts like a disability in its disruption of your life, the law just treats it as one.
Precisely. And once those symptoms meet that threshold, it places a strict, undeniable legal duty on the employer to make what the law calls reasonable adjustments.
Okay, but what if they don't meet that threshold?
Right. Even if your symptoms don't cross that threshold into disability, there is a second layer of protection, which is the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974.
Oh.
And this legislation requires employers to proactively conduct risk assessments to ensure the working environment isn't exacerbating an employee's existing health condition.
Wow, that really reframes the entire conversation.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it takes it out of the realm of, like, a personal favor. It's essentially the same logic as requesting an ergonomic chair for chronic back pain.
Yes, exactly.
You don't wait until a disc slips to ask for lumbar support, You just ask for the specific physical tool you need to perform your job safely without aggravating your spine.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, viewing menopause support through the standard lens of health and safety is incredibly strategic.
How so?
Well, historically, the standard 9-to-5 workplace was designed around a male biological baseline,
Right.
which is relatively static day to day. So when we frame menopause accommodations as standard health and safety provisions, it strips away the gendered awkwardness.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, it is no longer a taboo personal issue. It's just a routine workplace requirement, literally no different from adjusting the glare on a monitor to prevent migraines.
So the law is clearly on the employee's side here. But, the phrase reasonable adjustments is incredibly broad.
It is a bit vague, yeah.
Yeah, like when you are sitting in a meeting trying to just breathe through a hot flush, reasonable adjustments sounds like bureaucratic noise. But the sources outline highly practical solutions, right? Breaking them down into physical adjustments and flexible working adjustments.
They do. So on the physical side, the focus is entirely on environmental control.
Okay, like what?
This means an employee can request a desk fan. Simple as that. It means requesting a desk move, specifically asking to be seated near a window that actually opens, or away from a heat source like a radiator or a bank of servers.
It also includes access to cold drinking water, which, that sounds like a fundamental human right.
You'd think so.
But in highly regulated environments, like a retail shop floor, a call center, or a factory line, you often need explicit permission to step away from your station. So an adjustment formalizes that permission.
Exactly. Another crucial physical adjustment addresses clothing. Many organizations enforce strict synthetic uniform policies.
Well, yeah, the polyester uniforms.
Exactly. A recognized reasonable adjustment is modifying that policy.
Really?
Yeah, that might mean allowing an employee to wear breathable cotton layers or providing multiple sets of uniforms so someone can change partway through a shift if they're dealing with heavy periods or severe hot flushes.
Well, the physical environment is one thing, but when we look at the flexible working adjustments, that seems to be where the real friction lies.
Oh, definitely.
Because a manager might easily approve a desk fan, but asking to fundamentally alter your working hours challenges the traditional structures of control.
It does challenge traditional structures, but the frameworks emphasize that time and energy management are non-negotiable for certain symptoms.
Like sleep.
Exactly. Sleep disruption is a massive, often invisible symptom of perimenopause. If an employee has been awake from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. with night sweats and hormone-induced anxiety, their cognitive function at 8 a.m. is going to be compromised.
Obviously, yeah.
So a reasonable adjustment in this case is a later start time. Starting at 10 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. might be the single adjustment that prevents a highly experienced employee from quitting.
And the sources also suggest compressed work weeks, right?
Yeah.
Or the explicit permission to take more frequent micro breaks, or the option to work from home on days when brain fog is severe.
Yeah, all of those are on the table.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When you look at this list, the fans, the desk moves, the slight shifts in hours, almost all of these adjustments cost the company zero financial capital.
Financially, yes, the cost is practically zero.
But I want to push back on the idea that they are completely free.
Okay, how do you mean?
Well, they might not cost money, but they do cost cultural capital. Letting someone work from home when the company has a strict return-to-office policy requires a manager to bend the rules. It creates administrative friction.
And that friction is exactly why these frameworks exist, to give managers the institutional cover to bend those rules without feeling like they are undermining their own authority.
Right.
But speaking of administrative friction, there is one highly specific adjustment detailed in the ACAs and HR guides that addresses a hidden trap in corporate policy.
Oh, yeah.
It has to do with how absence is recorded.
The Bradford factor. This absolutely blew my mind when I read it in the
It
sources.
was brutal.
It is, because it's essentially an algorithm that punishes biological fluctuations.
Mm.
Break down how this math actually works, because I think it's vital to understand why it's so unfair.
Sure. So the Bradford factor is a mathematical formula used by HR departments to identify excessive short-term absences.
Okay.
The formula is S squared times D.
Break that down. What's S and D?
S is the total number of separate spells of absence, and D is the total number of days absent. The formula squares the number of spells, which means it exponentially punishes frequency over duration.
So let's run the numbers on that to see the impact. If I take one continuous block of time off, say 10 days to recover from a minor surgery, my score is 1 squared, which is 1 times 10 days. So my Bradford score is 10.
Correct. A score of 10 is perfectly fine and usually triggers no HR action whatsoever.
Okay.
But imagine you are dealing with severe menopause symptoms. You don't need a 2-week block off, but you occasionally have days where the symptoms are debilitating.
Right.
So over the course of a year, you take 10 separate days off. 1 day here, 1 day there. Your total days absent is the same, 10 days.
Right. Still 10 days out of the office.
But under the formula, your spells of absence, which is 10, are squared. 10 squared is 100. Multiply that by your 10 days, and your score is 1,000.
Wow. A score of 10 versus a score of 1,000 for the exact same amount of sick leave. And a score of 1,000 immediately triggers automated disciplinary action, performance reviews, and puts your job at risk. The algorithm just sees you as chronically unreliable.
Which raises an important question, right? How do you protect yourself against an automated system like that?
Yeah, what do you do?
The formal reasonable adjustment recommended by the CIPD is to request that any absence related to menopause be recorded completely separately from general sick leave.
Oh, so it effectively pulls your menopause symptoms out of the Bradford factor calculation entirely.
Exact.
It separates a protected health matter from a generic performance metric.
It does. But, while understanding these mechanisms is crucial, we have to acknowledge that menopause is not a monolith.
Definitely not.
The Medical Society guidelines are very clear that there are dozens of varying symptoms, from the physical hot flushes to severe anxiety, depressive moods, joint pain, and even recurrent urinary tract infections.
Oh, wow.
And symptoms fluctuate. Therefore, the adjustments must be highly tailored to the individual's specific needs at that specific time.
Which brings us to the most difficult part of this entire deep dive.
The conversation.
Exactly. Knowing about the Bradford factor and flexible hours is completely useless if you don't know how to initiate the conversation. How do you sit down across from a manager, look him in the eye, and ask for help?
The overarching advice from the workplace toolkits on this is surprisingly clinical. You must frame the dialogue as a performance conversation, not a personal medical disclosure.
So you don't go in and say, my hormones are all over the place and I'm exhausted.
No, absolutely not. A manager's primary professional concern is operational output.
Right.
So if you frame the conversation around how a specific adjustment will allow you to maintain your high level of performance, you immediately align your goals with theirs. The formula that experts recommend is actually very simple. Specific symptom plus work impact equals proposed adjustment.
Yeah, the coaching guys actually provide a verbatim script for this. I read it, and I have to admit, it sounds incredibly robotic.
It does read a bit stiff on paper.
Yeah. The script goes like this. Sleep disruption is affecting my concentration and energy in the mornings. The option to start at 10 a.m. on 2 days a week, making up the hours later in the day, would allow me to maintain the quality of my work.
Right.
My immediate reaction to that was, well, if I have a boss who is totally disconnected or slightly toxic, reading a sterile script like that is going to feel bizarre. Are they really suggesting employees speak like HR manuals?
What's fascinating here is the psychology behind that sterility.
Okay, tell me more.
Yes, it sounds formal, but it is intentionally designed to neutralize an emotional minefield. Consider the manager's perspective for a moment.
Okay.
Most line managers have received zero training on menopause, none. If an employee comes in highly emotional and shares intimate medical details, the untrained manager often panics.
Oh, that makes total sense. They don't know what to do.
Exactly. They fear saying the wrong thing, crossing a legal line, or just prying. And that panic often results in them shutting the conversation down or dismissing it entirely.
So the robotic nature of the script is actually a defense mechanism. It takes the burden of emotional intelligence off the manager.
Precisely. You are acting as a diagnostician for an operational roadblock. You identify the issue, sleep disruption impacting concentration, and you present a purely logistical solution that guarantees the quality of your work remains high.
Right.
You are giving the manager a clear, safe path to simply approve the request without needing to understand the intricacies of your endocrine system.
Let's address the reality of corporate hierarchies, though. What if your manager is someone you simply cannot have this conversation with?
It happens all the time.
Yeah, maybe they're known for being dismissive of women's issues, or perhaps it's just a highly strained working relationship. Are you forced to go through your direct supervisor?
Absolutely not. The guidance from organizations like the Society of Occupational Medicine is explicit on this point. You are not bound to your line manager.
Oh, that's a relief.
If you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, you can bypass them. You can initiate this conversation with human resources. If your company has an occupational health department, that is often the best route.
Good to know.
You can also seek out a welfare officer, a union representative, or increasingly, organizations have designated menopause champions or peer support networks.
Okay.
The objective is just to find an authorized individual with whom you feel secure.
Let's play out the worst case scenario, though.
Okay.
You do the brave thing, you use the script, you find the right person, and they just dismiss it. They hit you with a classic minimization tactic like, well, we all get tired. Or they flat out deny the request without offering an alternative. How do you protect yourself then?
This is where the legal advice and the HR advice heavily intersect.
Okay.
The absolute golden rule, regardless of whether the conversation goes poorly or perfectly, is to follow up in writing the very same day. Keep a meticulous paper trail.
So you send an email summarizing the interaction, something like, just summarizing our chat today. I noted that my hot flushes are exacerbated by the radiator at my desk, and I requested a move to the window seat to maintain my focus. You mentioned that wouldn't be possible right now. Could we explore other environmental adjustments?
Perfect. It creates a contemporaneous record.
Right.
If you are ever forced into an employment tribunal or if you need to escalate the issue to senior HR, that paper trail proves that the employer was made aware of a health issue affecting your work and failed to engage in the reasonable adjustments process.
Oh, wow.
It is the ultimate legal protection.
Okay. Assuming the conversation is successful, you advocate for yourself, you get the desk fan, your absences are recorded separately from the Bradford factor, and you get your flexible start times.
Okay.
You are stabilized.
Great.
But corporate environments are chaotic.
Great.
6 months later, your company restructures, you get a new boss who knows nothing about your arrangement,
Okay.
or because perimenopause is a transitional phase, your symptoms completely alter.
Which happens a lot.
Right, like the hot flushes disappear, but debilitating joint pain begins.
Yeah.
How do you sustain the support without having to endure the emotional labor of starting from scratch every time something changes?
Well, this is where progressive organizations transition from treating menopause as a one-off conversation to treating it as a systemic structural issue.
Okay.
Several of the frameworks we reviewed, particularly those utilized by the UK Civil Service and various NHS trusts, introduce a concept known as the Workplace Adjustment Passport. Sometimes it's referred to as a health passport.
This was a completely new concept to me, and it honestly seems like the most powerful tool in the entire stack of sources.
Yeah.
How exactly does a passport function in practice?
A workplace adjustment passport is an optional, highly confidential document that you, the employee, own.
You own it.
Yes, it is a formalized record that documents the specific workplace barriers you are facing and the exact reasonable adjustments that have been officially agreed upon by the organization.
It's essentially a negotiated contract of support.
Yes, and its primary power is portability.
Portability, right.
If you are promoted to a different department, or if a new manager takes over your team, you do not have to initiate a vulnerable conversation about your medical history with a complete stranger.
You just show them the document.
Just simply present the passport. It acts as an organizational mandate that says, these are my agreed upon adjustments, and they move with me.
That removes so much anxiety. I mean, the fear of losing your accommodations often traps people in roles they outgrow
Hmm.
simply because they don't want to risk losing a sympathetic boss.
Absolutely.
But what about the fluctuating nature of the symptoms? If the passport is a contract, does it lock you into adjustments you no longer need?
Not at all. The HR toolkit stress that the passport is a living document.
Okay.
It requires regular reviews, at a minimum, annually. What functions perfectly during the early stages of a biological transition might be completely inadequate a year later.
Makes sense.
So you and your manager sit down, review the passport, and ask a simple operational question. Are these adjustments still serving their intended purpose? If the answer is no, you iterate and tweak the document.
So what does this all mean? When I look at this entire sequence, understanding the legal backing of the Equality Act, using the mathematical reality of the Bradford factor to demand separate reporting, utilizing a sterile script to bypass manager panic, and locking it all in with a portable health passport, I just realize how structural this process actually is.
It was very structural.
Yeah. Out in the real world, menopause is treated like this shameful secret failing. But looking at the actual frameworks, it's not emotional. It's an architectural problem with clear logistical solutions.
And that formalization is vital for the employer as well.
Definitely.
When a company adopts this framework, when they implement passports and separate absence reporting, they drastically reduce their legal risk. The literature explicitly notes that employment tribunals concerning menopause discrimination are rising.
I'm not surprised.
And companies lose those cases when they ignore symptoms. But beyond risk mitigation, formalizing this framework allows companies to retain their most experienced leaders. They stop losing top-tier talent to easily solvable environmental problems.
Okay, let's do a quick recap of our mission today. If you are sitting at work right now, actively struggling with symptoms, remember these core takeaways from our deep dive. First, you do not need a medical diagnosis to have the right to ask for help. The law focuses on the impact of your symptoms, not a doctor's note.
Right.
Second, you can advocate for specific practical adjustments, whether that's moving away from a heat source, demanding your absences be removed from the Bradford factor calculations, or shifting your hours.
Exactly.
Third, use the script. Frame your request purely around how the adjustment will allow you to maintain your performance, and always follow up with an email to create a paper trail.
That paper trail is key.
It is. And finally, look into establishing a workplace adjustment passport so your accommodations become permanent portable company policy.
Ultimately, by utilizing these tools, you are not just managing your own career, you are forcing the corporate structure to acknowledge biological reality.
Exactly. Advocating for yourself isn't just a personal victory, it's a structural intervention. Every time you formally request an adjustment, you are actively rewriting the code of your workplace. You are surveying a rigid foundation and insisting that a new door be cut.
Well said.
And the byproduct of that construction is that you leave the door open for every other person in your organization who is currently trying to hide their symptoms.
You establish a precedent that proves accommodation is possible and painless.
Which leaves us with one final thought to ponder. We spent this entire time looking at how corporate structures can and should adapt to the completely natural, fluctuating realities of menopause.
Right.
But if a massive bureaucracy can successfully tweak its rigid rules to support this specific biological transition, could this be the blueprint we've been waiting for? Could learning to properly accommodate menopause finally force the modern workplace to adapt to the biological, messy realities of all human beings, rather than expecting every single one of us to perform like an unbroken machine?
It highlights the ultimate goal, doesn't it? Building workplaces designed for human ecology, not just industrial output.
Imagine what we could build with that.
Yeah.
So the next time that heat wave hits you at your desk and you see your manager walking over, just don't panic. And don't try to hide it. Remember that the law is on your side. You have the exact script, and you absolutely have the right to ask for the tools you need.